Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to another very soggy and rainy day here on Cape Cod. What a miserable day, but we also need the rain very much. This is Doug Fagan, your volunteer reader, coming to you today, as always, from the studios of the Audible Local Ledger here in Deer Crossing in Mashpee, Massachusetts. Today I'll be reading for you the Tuesday, October 14th edition of the Cape Cod Times. And as I mentioned, the weather outside for the third straight day is miserable. I've been out and about since about 5 o'clock this morning, and I wanted you to know that it has been constant rain, sometimes very heavy, sometimes misty, and other times somewhere in between. But it's definitely raining, and this storm, although we haven't had the major winds that they were predicting from a nor'easter, they've not happened, but we've had a lot of rain. I don't know exactly how much. I'm sure that'll be discovered and disseminated later this afternoon when the storm moves out. But with that being said, let's take a look now at the overall weather for today and the rest of the week. Today we're going to have a high of 61 degrees on the South Shore and the Cape and Islands, and obviously rain. It says windy with occasional rain and drizzle, but I would tell you that occasional is a misnomer, as it's been constant rain and drizzle, hopefully turning the storm out to sea later this afternoon. Tonight, turning out clear with a full moon hidden by a few clouds and an overnight low of 53 degrees. Now, come tomorrow, we have a high of 64 degrees, breezy at times with a spattering of sun and clouds. Thursday, we're going to have a high. It drops 10 degrees from tomorrow's high on Wednesday of 64. Thursday has a high of only 54 degrees and a low overnight of 47. We're going to have a little bit more rain come Thursday afternoon. At least that's what the weather forecast says. Friday, we're still in the 50s, 56, mid-50s, but we have more sunshine. Breezy in the morning, partly sunny in the afternoon. Overnight low of 44. So you can see with those temperatures Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday having overnight lows in the 40s, it's coming on to fall, that's for sure. Now, Saturday, we're back up into the 60s, low 60s at 60. Plenty of sunshine finally to help dry us out, and an overnight low of 51 degrees. So if you don't have to go out today, I'd advise you staying inside. Lots of standing water, consistent rain, lots of traffic. If you don't need to be out there, don't go. Wait until tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. Any of those days would be fine to get out and do whatever errands you have to do. All right, let's look around the temperatures for the highs on the South Shore and the Cape and Islands today. Starting on the South Shore, Plymouth at 59, Buzzards Bay and Wareham at 60 as highs today. Crossing over into Sandwich, we have 60 at Falmouth, Sandwich, Mashpee, and Barnstable High and Hyannis at 61. Same with Dennis at 61 and Brewster also 61. At the elbow of the Cape, Chatham is 63, Eastham 63, Truro 60, and out at Provincetown at Race Point Light, we have a high of 60 degrees. Now, the water temperature down to 60 in Cape Cod Bay, so it's slipping lower every day of the week. Wave heights 4 to 7 feet and wind direction northeast at 20 to 30 knots. Moving on out to the islands. At Martha's Vineyard over at Edgartown and Oak Bluffs, we have a high today of 62 degrees and same old rain out there as we have here. Same for Nantucket with highs at Nantucket Village today, 63, and Secaucet, 62. Oh, you want to swim in the Sound rather than the Bay today? Well, we've had only 1 degree cooler at 61 degrees for the water temperature in Nantucket Sound. Wave heights a little high at 6 to 10 feet, and wind direction northeast at 20 to 30 knots. So not a good day for boating, and not a good day certainly for swimming. All right, friends, there you have it. A look at today's weather for the Cape and Islands and the South Shore. Now let's move on to page 1 of today's Cape Cod Times newspaper. The headline article today focuses on housing in the Sandwich area. It's accompanied by a picture. Underneath the picture, it says a view from the second floor of the entrance lobby at the Henry T. Wing residences of the old Henry T. Wing School, a new age restricted housing complex in a renovated old brick schoolhouse. This was taken on October the 9th. The headline here says, housing for 62 years plus, now open in the former school, and here is the article. Lockers still line the second floor hall of a historic brick house school along Water Street in Sandwich that's been revamped into age-restricted housing. Town officials gathered on Thursday morning to celebrate the newly opened Henry T. Wing residences. The new housing is inside the former Henry T. Wing School, which closed back in the year 2015. The first phase of the project features a total of 38 units, 4 studio units, 33 one-bedroom apartments, and 1 two-bedroom apartment. The original gymnasium now houses a common space that will host on-site supportive services and a community space for local senior residents. While the idea for the project began in 2012, 13 years ago, construction didn't begin until 2022. Parts of the school were demolished to make way for the project, but the original 1927 structure remained. The 31-acre campus will eventually include 128 rental units, which are age-restricted for those 62 years of age and older. 80% of the units will be reserved as affordable housing. 108 units will be rented to households having an annual income of no more than 60% of the area median income for Barnstable County. That, according to Leanne Drake, the Director of Community Development for Sandwich. And 29 units will be rented to households having an annual income of no more than 30% of the area median income. The remaining 20 units may be rented at market rate. Residences, a new age restricted housing complex in the renovated old brick schoolhouse, and will soon be opened. 41 units are currently under construction as part of the second phase of the project, including 39 one-bedroom and 2 two-bedrooms. A handful of the completed units are now occupied, said Drake. Half of the units should be occupied by mid-October, with full occupancy expected by December 31st. According to the project's website, funding stems from low-income housing tax credits, affordable housing trust funds, community-based housing, Barnstable County Home, HOME, home funds, Housing Stabilization Funds, and Community Preservation Act funds. The town of Sandwich previously announced that it had finalized a transaction to sell the Henry T. Wing School to SCG Development Partners, LLC, a Boston-based firm that acquires properties to create senior and workforce rental communities, and Choice, CHOICE, Choice Incorporated, which is a nonprofit that develops intergenerational community housing. The two bought the 33 Water Street property for $1,265,000 on May 31st, according to the Barnstable Registry of Deeds. All right, that concludes that article mentioning the conversion of the former Henry T. Wing School into various degrees of affordable housing, and that structure was built in 1927 and now has been almost completely renovated. Probably an interesting sight to see. This next article here on page 1 references the storm that we're currently in the tail end of. It says, as its headline, Monday sees scattered power outages after the storm. This is by Marianne Bragg of the Cape Cod Times Network, and here is the article. A smattering of power outages occurred across Cape Cod on Monday morning, October 13th, as a nor'easter blew across the region, according to Eversource Electric Utility. The largest outages as of 6:30 a.m. yesterday on Monday were 124 customers in the area of Yarmouth and Dennis town lines off Great Western Road. By 9:30 a.m., the biggest outage for the 83 customers was in Harwich. Early on Monday, on the lower Cape, heavy surf rolled in at Nauset Beach, and a fallen tree blocked a road in Orleans. A utility truck drove through a flooded area on Route 124 at the Harwich and Brewster town line. A wind advisory remained in effect throughout 8 p.m. yesterday for Barnstable County, with a focus on Provincetown, Chatham, and Falmouth, according to the National Weather Service. Northeast winds were predicted at 20 to 30 miles per hour, with gusts up to 50 miles per hour. Showers and patchy fog were predicted for Monday in Hyannis, with a high of 62 degrees. So that's the end of that brief article, and we have not yet been hit and don't really expect to be hit very much harder at all by this particular nor'easter, although, as I said earlier, lots and lots of rain and lots of standing water and huge puddle in various places along the Cape. Before moving on to hopefully another article or two of local interest on page 3, the Cape and Islands page, I'll read you one more article here from the front page, and it says, it's more of a national reference, it says, tempers flaring in D.C. as the government shutdown continues. This is a USA Today network article. Obviously, the dateline is Washington, D.C. 2 weeks into a government shutdown with no end in sight, tensions are high and getting higher among people with the power to end it. At the U.S. Capitol last week, 2 Democratic senators confronted the Republican Speaker of the House outside his office, accusing him of covering up for pedophiles by avoiding a vote to release more information on the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. On the same day, the Democratic House Minority Leader separately yelled at a Republican congressman to keep your mouth shut. The testy scenes underscore an increasingly bitter relationship between America's 2 major political parties as the government shutdown approaches a 3rd week. The House of Representatives has not taken a vote in more than 3 weeks, as House Speaker has sent the representatives home, and the Senate has yet to work through a weekend since the funding lapsed on September the 30th. Members of Congress say they are starting to feel the pressure, and it's showing in their interactions with each other. I'm trying to muster every ounce of Christian charity that I can, said House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, who said this of dealing with the Democrats. It's bare knuckles in this fight, added Jimmy Gomez, a Democrat from California. On October 8, 2 Democratic senators from Arizona were complaining about Johnson outside his office. That's when the speaker emerged and walked toward the senators, Ruben Gallego and Mark Kelly, who then criticized him over refusing to swear in a new Democratic congresswoman from their state during the shutdown. Once Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva officially takes office, the senators point out she'll likely deliver the final vote needed to force another vote on a measure ordering the Justice Department to publicly release the Epstein files. Long a point of contention. The senators accused Johnson of keeping House members away from the Capitol in order to delay that particular vote. We're going to do that as soon as we get back to work, but we need the lights turned back on, Johnson told them, according to video from the news outlet Notice. You guys are experts in red herrings. This has nothing to do with Epstein, so said the speaker. knowing that that's not exactly true. You just keep coming up with excuses, Gallego fired back. The fiery exchange ended with all three politicians talking over each other at the same time. Video of the encounter spread online. In another scene that same day, a conversation devolved into a shouting match. Representative Mike Lawler, Republican from New York, confronted House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat from New York, about his refusal to support a one-year extension of the expiring health insurance subsidies, which are at the center of the shutdown fight. It's sad, Lawler said, holding up a copy of a proposed bill to continue the subsidies, which come in the form of a tax credit. Why don't you just keep your mouth shut? Jeffrey said. The ruckus drew a gaggle of onlookers, many of whom filmed the interaction, which then again went viral. So, friends, not much progress in the government shutdown. Both sides entrenched in their respective positions, and we are yet to see what will eventually be the outcome and when the government will reopen. All right, now we'll move on. Well, we're now on page 2, where we find this article as a headline: 22-year-old motorcyclist flown to hospital after crash with an SUV in Bourne. This is by Zain Razak of the Cape Cod Times Network. There's a picture of a mangled motorcycle as a result of the collision of the motorcycle and the SUV, which occurred in Bourne on October 11th at Head of the Bay Road. So here's the article, friends. A male 22-year-old motorcyclist from Taunton sustained serious injuries after a crash with an SUV on Saturday afternoon, according to the Bourne Police Department. Bourne police officers responded to a reported motor vehicle crash around 2 p.m. in the afternoon in the area of 6 Head of the Bay Road. When they arrived, they found the motorcyclist on the ground with suspected serious injuries. The driver of the SUV, an 84-year-old man from Bourne, reported no injuries and stayed on the scene until the police arrived. The motorcyclist was taken to an area hospital by a Boston Med Flight helicopter. The Cape Cod Regional Law Enforcement Council crash reconstruction team was investigating the crash. Not a good thing to be riding a motorcycle and to be hit by a car, that's for sure. Here's another article regarding traffic and an accident. The headline here says, Bourne Bridge closed, then reopened after multi-vehicle crash. This article by Zain Razak of the Cape Cod Times Network, and here it is. The Bourne Bridge reopened around 5:10 p.m. Sunday afternoon, October 12th, after a multi-vehicle crash closed all lanes shortly after 1 p.m., according to the Bourne Police Department. So the bridge traffic in both ways was closed for around 4 hours. A photo of the scene showed a tractor-trailer stopped on the bridge and at least 3 cars behind it. One of the 3 was damaged and straddled the double yellow line. One driver became entrapped as a result of the crash and was transported to St. Luke's Hospital in New Bedford with serious injuries, according to the state police. On Monday, that's yesterday, October 13th, there was no further information available from the fire department. Bourne police, firefighters, and emergency medical service personnel responded to the scene to assist with traffic detours and to provide medical assistance. State police are investigating the incident. Now we're moving to page 3, where, once again on this particular page, we have a huge picture covering about 40% of the page and one small article relative to the state of Massachusetts, and the rest is all ads. So I will read this one brief article. Its headline says, Massachusetts unemployment, paid leave, worker comp benefits, all bumping up. This is by Colin Young of the State House News Service. Here's the article. Some state benefit recipients are getting a boost thanks to an increase in the indicator used to determine the weekly maximums for unemployment, paid leave, and worker compensation programs. The Department of Unemployment Assistance said the maximum weekly benefit for new unemployment claims rose from $1,051 to $1,105 at the start of this month, the result of an increase in the average weekly wage for Bay State workers. The Department of Family and Medical Leave said the maximum weekly benefit under its program will climb from $1,170 to $1,230, roughly a $50 increase, as of January 1st, 2026, for the same reasons as stated above for the other change. The change also affects benefits paid out through the Department of Industrial Accidents, where the new minimum compensation is $384 for injuries on or after October 1st, with a maximum payment of $1,922. State law requires the maximum weekly benefit amount for the programs to be revised annually based on the average weekly wage for the 12-month period that ended in March. During that period, the average weekly wage in Massachusetts increased from $1,829 to $1,922, a significant increase according to the DUA. Christopher Carlozzi, state director of the local arm of the National Federation of Independent Business and a frequent advocate for reforms to the unemployment insurance system, said Massachusetts not only has the easiest qualification standards and the longest duration to collect at 30 weeks, it also has the second highest weekly benefit in the nation at $1,105 per week. Unemployment has been on the rise in Massachusetts, holding in the August month at 4.8% compared to 3.5% in August of 2023. Those are key sectors like life sciences, higher education, healthcare, and state government itself have been feeling the squeeze from policies enacted by the Trump administration and a Republican-controlled Congress. All right, that concludes that particular article, and we shall move on. We'll now move on to articles that have more of a national or international reference. This first one says, Innovation researchers win the Nobel Prize in Economics. This is a Reuters news agency report with a dateline of Stockholm, Sweden. Joel Morkier, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt won the 2025 Nobel Economics Prize on October 13 for their work on how innovation and the forces of creative destruction can drive economic growth and lift living standards across the globe. Their research explains how technology gives rise to new products and production methods that replace older ones, resulting in a better standard of living, health, and quality of life. Over the last 2 centuries, for the first time in history, the world has seen sustained economic growth. This has lifted vast numbers of people out of poverty and laid the foundation of our prosperity, the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, which awards the prize, said in a provided statement. The laureates have also shown that such progress cannot be taken for granted, the Academy said, while 2 of the prize winners highlighted that President Donald Trump's trade policies would impinge and hinder the growth of the international economy. Economics stagnation, not growth, has been the norm for most of human history, the Academy said. Their work shows that we must be aware of and counteract threats to continued growth. While most economists view economic growth as a driver of prosperity, there are some who do not see it as an unalloyed good. The 2024 Economics Prize was won by Darren Acemoglu, Simon Johnson, and James Robinson for work on inequality. Johnson, in particular, has pointed to how the benefits of technology innovation can be skewed toward powerful elites. There's also a fierce debate about what level of growth is sustainable in light of human climate change and the environment degradation. This next article deals with the government shutdown. Its headline says, "Shutdown derailing park celebrations. Closures strips the location of rangers and restrooms," and this is a USA Today article. And here it is. When Stephanie Larea stumbled upon pictures of Spence Cabin in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, it felt like destiny. The bright pink and green exterior of the secluded River Lodge perfectly matched her and her fiancé's wedding colors. The couple, who live in Charleston, South Carolina, had been searching for a mountain destination to get married. This one was under budget, and so they opted for it. And it still had one weekend available in the fall before it closed for the season. And while it was meant to be there, the 31-year-old remembered thinking when she booked the wedding venue in May, it was either do it now or wait another whole year. Then, of course, came the federal government shutdown on October 1st. Suddenly, Larea's wedding plans were thrown into limbo amid uncertainty over whether the national park would keep the cottage open. The first day was just pure panic, Larea said, of the shutdown and her scramble to figure out whether her wedding would still be possible. You start to realize that it might not pan out. The shutdown has furloughed thousands of people, including National Park Service employees, and has caused widespread confusion over whether publicly funded tourist destinations, such as the national parks and the Smithsonian museums, will continue to operate. Some closures have already begun to derail engagements, elopements, and weddings planned at popular attractions across the country. More are expected to follow as the shutdown continues with no clear end in sight. Jennifer Maurer, an outdoor wedding photographer, rushed to find a new location to shoot a surprise engagement on October 8 after learning that White Sands National Park in New Mexico might be closed because of the shutdown. The couple was traveling on vacation from the Midwest, and the groom had planned to pop the question against the desert sunset. Maurer said, but less than 24 hours before the shoot, conflicting reports online made it unclear as to whether the park would even be open. She opted to move the engagement to a nearby patch of unrestricted Bureau of Land Management territory. That turned out to be the right choice as the park was closed. It's been really confusing for couples who are planning these big events and trying to have this really special moment in a place that's meaningful to them, she said. White Sands is one of those places that's incredibly unique and impossible to recreate. In the nation's capital, some couples have canceled or rescheduled engagement photo sessions because of the closures of popular museums and the national monuments, including the National Gallery of Art, the Library of Congress, the National Archives Museum, the U.S. National Arboretum, and the Washington Monument. We're just putting those sessions on hold, especially for the clients who have had their hearts set on those locations, said Christian Nuoso, a wedding photographer in the area, noting that it is hard to find locations with a similar vibe to many of the shuttered museums. It makes it very challenging to reschedule, and then when these locations really open back up, I suspect they'll be quite busy with both photographers and visitors, Nuoso said. For photographers, the delay means less income in the short term. Nuoso and other photographers in the Washington, D.C. area, with whom USA Today spoke, said they've seen a significant drop-off in the number of people requesting photo shoots since the shutdown began. For couples, canceled photo shoots can delay plans to send out save-the-date cards and cross off other milestones on their way to the altar, Nwosu said. Anna Wright, another photographer in the D.C. area, said she's worried that clients planning to elope at the D.C. War Memorial on the National Mall will need to change their plans as a result of the government shutdown. The couple is unlikely to reschedule their shoot, set to take place the week of October 12th, Wright said, but she's unsure if the National Park Service will barricade the memorial and prevent them from using it, or if park personnel will be available to cordon off the area for the private event. As of October 9, the Park Service said open-air memorials and monuments will remain open to the public. Everybody is just waiting to see, Wright said. It's a frustrating cloud over their wedding, which should be very exciting. So the show goes on. Many national parks, including Great Smoky Mountains, announced plans to keep their gates open throughout the shutdown, but said they will limit some services and close facilities, including bathrooms. A group of nonprofits and local governments in Tennessee partnered together to keep the Smoky Mountains open during the shutdown through October 19, with some restrictions. The longest shutdown in U.S. history occurred in the year 2018 and lasted 35 days. If this one were to last the same length, it would end on November 4th. For people hosting permitted events in the parks, the difficulty is figuring out exactly which parts of the park are impacted. In the early days of the shutdown, Larea said she called Great Smoky Mountains National Park repeatedly to see if Spencer Cabin would remain open for events. No one was there to answer her calls, and since she doesn't live locally, she has not been able to inspect the parks. There were other bridges on Facebook that were asking the same questions that I was asking, and more other brides on Facebook that were asking the same question I was asking, and no one really seemed to have the answer, she said. Her efforts to create an alternate plan also failed. With only 3 weeks until the wedding, most of the other venues in the area were already booked, of course. Still, Larea is hopeful her wedding will go on as planned. She said she's heard rumors from others on Facebook that park rangers plan to honor special events permits through the shutdown, and USA Today was unable to verify the accuracy of that particular information. Larea said she's choosing to have faith that the shutdown will end and the venue will be reopened soon. She and her fiancé Dante will make the 6-hour drive from South Carolina to Tennessee on October the 21st. I have this gut feeling that everything is going to be fine, she said. I'm trusting that because otherwise I'd be losing my mind right now. So there you have it, friends, the impact of previously scheduled events, from surprise engagements to elopements and other activities that now are in limbo or on hold due to the closure of the national parks as a result of the government shutdown. All right, friends, at this point, let's delve away from the news and take a look at the various lottery games. First of all, we'll look at the two big ones, Mega Millions and Powerball. The current Mega Million jackpot is estimated to be $600 million, and the next drawing will be held today at 11 o'clock tonight. A reminder that Mega Millions tickets have jumped as of April 1st of this year, from $2 to $5. Here are the winning numbers from last Friday, the 10th of October. 3, 18, 23, 32, 56, and a mega ball of 8. Again, 3, 18, 23, 32, 56, and a mega ball of 8. Now the other big jackpot, Powerball. That estimated jackpot is to be $273 million as of today, with the next drawing to be held tomorrow at 11 p.m. at night. The Powerball tickets remain at $2 versus $5 for the Mega Millions. The most winning recent numbers, which were drawn on the 13th, that's yesterday, of October, were these: 13, 14, 32, 52, 64, and a Powerball of 12. Again, 13, 14, 32, 52, 64, and a Powerball of 12. Now, the Lucky for Life drawing, held every day. The next one is at 10:38 p.m. tonight. That offers $1,000 a day for life. Here were the Lucky for Life numbers drawn yesterday: 3, 9, 19, 28, 46, and 5. That's a Lucky for Life ball. 3, 9, 19, 28, 46, and a Lucky for Life ball of 5. All right, how about we look at Megabucks next? That jackpot is currently at $5.95 million, and the 6 most recent winning numbers, which were drawn yesterday, the 13th of October, are these: 8, 11, 22, 34, 36, and 44. Again, the Megabucks yesterday: 8, 11, 22, 34, 36, and 44. The numbers game, for those of you that pay that, the midday yesterday numbers game, drawn Monday the 13th of August, midday numbers 5049, 5049 for midday, and the evening numbers drawing game, here are those winning numbers: 6359, 6359 for the evening numbers game. All right, friends, that concludes our look at the lottery and its most recent winning numbers and the current jackpots, along with the drawing dates. So, if you continue to play, I say good luck to you players, and you can't win if you don't play. All right, let's move. For those of you who tend to follow us somewhat regularly, it's just past or at the midpoint of the broadcast that we take a look at various obituaries, which may be found in the paper. And I've noticed recently there are fewer and fewer. For example, only one today. I'm guessing that's due to the high cost of per word charges by various newspapers across the country, which can be quite expensive. But this one today is from Pocasset, and it is of Barbara Ann Emerson. Here it is. Barbara Ann Emerson, Barbara Ann Urson, that's Erson, age 95, of Pocasset and formerly of Needham, passed away on October the 9th, surrounded by her loving family. She was the beloved wife of the late Thomas Emerson, Jr., proud mother of Donald Emerson of Marlborough. She leaves behind many grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. Visiting hours will be held at the Eaton, E-A-T-O-N, funeral home, and in Needham on Thursday, October the 16th, from 4 to 7 p.m. The funeral service will take place at the Needham Congregational Church on Friday, October 17th at 10:30, followed by burial at Needham Cemetery. So that is a rather brief obituary. At the top, it's from Pocasset, and it's of Barbara Ann Emerson. I said Urson earlier, but the article is kind of whopper-jawed in its spacing, but it is Barbara Ann Emerson of Pocasset, who passed away October the 9th at age 95. All right, we're back to articles that deal of a national or international interest, and this next one is headlined by saying economists forecast stronger U.S. growth, weak job gains, inflation are likely to mar the outlook. And this is a Reuters news agency report with a dateline of Washington, D.C., and here's the article. Surging business investment is expected to offset weaker growth in consumption and global trade and keep the U.S. economy growing near trend, according to a National Association for Business Economics survey. Though slow job growth, higher unemployment, and stickier inflation will mar the outlook. The Trump administration's new import taxes remain a drag on the economy's performance, the survey concluded, with more than 60% of the 40 economists in the poll estimating that the tariffs would knock up to half a percentage point from the economic growth, with both imports and exports falling, and consumer prices rising as a result of these levies or tariffs. None saw the tariffs boosting growth. But the latest version of the NABE's quarterly survey, released on October 13th as part of the group's annual meeting, upgraded the more pessimistic views about the U.S. outlook offered earlier in the year, when concerns about the economy blow from tariffs and the risks of a broader trade war were at their peak. The median projection was for the economy to grow 1.8% in 2025, around most estimates of underlying potential, compared with 1.3% projected in the June survey. Inflation, as measured by the Federal Reserve's preferred personal consumption expenditures price index, was seen ending the year at 3%. Which is down slightly from the 3.1% projected as of June. But it was also seen declining only to 2.5% in 2026 compared with 2.3% in the June survey, a slower return toward the Fed's 2% target of unemployment and inflation. The unemployment rate, meanwhile, was seen rising through the next year, though less than feared in the June, to 4.5% versus 4.7% in the previous survey. All right, we'll move. Let's now, friends, move to the lighter side of the paper and take a look at the Dear Carolyn column. Sometimes very interesting, sometimes humorous, sometimes actually rather functional, wherein people from out there in Readerland write in to Carolyn, exposing their problems and seeking her solutions. This headline says, Walking Companion's Speedy Pace May Indicate Avoidance. Well, do you have a companion you walk with? Well, if so, maybe this article is pertinent to you. Anyhow, here's the letter. It says, Dear Carolyn, what is the etiquette around adjusting to a walking companion's preferred pace? My partner's natural, comfortable pace has always been a bit faster than mine. As a result, when we are on a walk allegedly together, they pull ahead of me. Anyone seeing us would not recognize us as a couple or even a trio at times on an outing. My choices seem to boil down to pushing myself to an uncomfortable pace, or just being content to be always about 6 to 10 paces behind. I will say they do sometimes cast a brief glance over their shoulder, perhaps to confirm that I'm still on my feet and making some progress. Once satisfied that I haven't collapsed, they turn their gaze forward again, and their pace continues. I've expressed my unhappiness with this behavior, and it is a behavior, but it persists even in the face of my complaints. Any suggestions? Signed, Outpaced in Wisconsin. So here's Carolyn's response. Dear Outpaced in Wisconsin, really? What were the chances I'd defend this on etiquette grounds? It's the bedrock of chivalry and our social graces to let weaker companions eat dust? ? Is it? So let's drop that whole pretext. Your companion avoids your companionship, and that hurts. That's what this is about, not necessarily the pace. Don't distance yourself from the issue by trying to apply a general framework. Now, to be fair, if you're just walking from the parking lot, say to your spot on the beach, points A to B, then sure, move at your own happy paces. Your togetherness lies ahead of you, and misery lies in picking wee battles like this. But there's also a math problem here. You're always about 6 to 10 paces behind, a fixed gap. A partner with a faster pace would create a widening gap, right? So your partner walks faster only enough to stay ahead? Suddenly, framing it just as a pace issue looks like another pretext to me. Your response to the walking problem, overcompensating for your partner's inattention, then pleading for some consideration, then noting just how degraded your coupled experience has become, perfectly fits the bigger problem of alienation. When one partner's interest has waned or aggravation has mounted, to the point the other is the only one even trying, it plays out a lot like this. Maybe I'm catastrophizing. If there's no issue beyond walks, then it can be a simple answer. Quit on together and enjoy your own pace. Truly, it doesn't fix any communication or respect issues, obviously, but it fixes the persistent frustration of wanting things to be different. When an otherwise good partner is bad at one thing, it can be a reasonable choice to accept that. A partner who won't slow down for you certainly is not ideal, but a partner who won't listen to you is not tenable. And if that's what you have, then that's what you need to say when you're both sitting still and talking it over. That's kind of interesting. It does sound like the person walking ahead really doesn't want anything to do with this person who's slower. Maybe they should each find new partners. I guess if I were Carolyn, that would be my advice to the person with the problem, for that, whatever that's worth. This article that I'll read next has a focus probably on younger parents, but could also work for those of us who are grandparents as well. The headline here says, Build kids' early literacy skills before kindergarten. This is an article by Eric Trevino from the Arizona Republic newspaper and also a USA Today Network article. Here it is. Parents should not wait until their child enters kindergarten to begin working on literacy, so say various experts. To set a child up for success, parents should start working on literacy skills as soon as the child can answer questions, said Ariel Khalil, a professor at the University of Chicago and co-director of the Behavioral Insights and Parenting Lab. A literacy skill gap between a child and their peers in kindergarten can be a challenge to close, she said. Reading proficiency at the end of the third grade is a major indicator of future academic success, according to Read On Arizona, which is an early literacy alternative launched in 2013. Yet the National Assessment of Educational Progress has seen a decrease in reading proficiency among fourth graders from 37% in 2017 to 33% in the year 2022, the most recent year for which data has been available. There are many misconceptions about early literacy that can impact a child's success, Khalil said. Contrary to popular belief, household income or a parent's long work hours are not indicators of how well a child will be able to read in the future. But parents often overestimate their child's skills or assume they'll catch up when they enter kindergarten. The good news? Well, to build language skills and vocabulary that will boost literacy, all parents have to do is engage their kids in conversation, said Khalil. When reading to a child, parents shouldn't focus on recognizing letters or sounding out words because children will be taught those skills in kindergarten. Instead, parents should focus on building language skills by communicating with their kids, exploring ideas from the book, and asking open-ended questions. Such questions use the words who, what, when, where, and why, and should take the child out of the present moment, asking them what they think will happen next in the story. As an example, according to Terry Clark, Literacy Director for Read On Arizona, open-ended questions force children to put thoughts together and to extract meaning from what they just heard. In addition, reading aloud helps a child build vocabulary and background knowledge that will prepare them once they are actually reading. Reading is one of the best stimuli for this type of conversation, but it isn't the only one. Children's television or a walk outside can serve as a stimulus as well, Khalil said. Parents who struggle with reading can use picture stimuli to incite various conversation. Once a child enters school, parents should help their child practice what they are learning in the classroom, Clark said. Parents can ask teachers what is being taught and how to complement that at home. If a child is learning letters, a parent could ask them to spot letters in their surroundings. If they are learning to sound out words, a parent can single out a word for practice. Daily practice helps establish foundational skills that will be a benefit when children move on to more complex and challenging skills. Because life can get in the way of parents' intentions, Khalil recommends that parents set behavioral nudges or reminders to practice reading. The Behavioral Insights and Parenting Lab sends text reminders, for instance. There's always opportunities to stimulate kids' language and their vocabulary and their curiosity about the world, Khalil said. It's just a matter of making it a regular practice. All right, pretty good advice. Here's another family-oriented article that you might be interested in. Its headline is Unspoken Understanding. Underneath that, it says camps offer support for youths who lost parents to overdoses. And this is a USA Today article as well with the dateline of Wingdale, New York. Here's the article, friends. Under the cover of darkness, Daisy Talbot and Ali Houfler are sharing secrets about loss. They squeeze like sardines with the other girls onto two beds and clamor for space on the floor. Fingers sticky with sugar and lime juice from Sour Patch Kids and Takis chips. They joke with the kind of dark humor only they can understand about being in the Dead Parent Club. They come from different rent states and are in different grades and carry different stories. But here at Overdose Loss Camp, they're just the girls of Cabin 13, bonded by a kind of pain no child should ever have to endure. People just instantly talk about it without ever having to explain anything, Talbot says. The conversation continues on the cabin's rickety porch. After the younger campers have gone to bed and the Milky Way has emerged overhead, they begin to peel back the layers of their grief, sharing fears and tears they've seldom told anyone else. I want to go on medication, but I'm afraid of getting addicted. What if I lose someone else to overdose? I am terrified of ending up like my dad. Well, these are the kinds of conversations that happen during this free weekend retreat for kids ages 7 to 17 who happen to have lost a parent or sibling due to drug overdose. Held from September 12th through the 14th this year, Comfort Zone Cabin launched the program in 2022, the first overnight camp of its kind in the country, after seeing a growing need for overdose-specific support as its general grief camps. When you're able to kind of isolate that loss and bring them all together, that's when the real magic happens, because the stigma just kind of disappears, says Krista Calapi, the camp's Northeast Senior Regional Director. Talbot was 3 years old when her dad, Luke, died in his sleep from an opioid overdose. She was the one who found him dead. Daddy-daughter dances, Father's Day, or something as simple as dinner with a friend's family. Remind her she's just not grieving her dad, she's grieving the opportunities she's missed and will miss growing up without a father. Now 14, she's attended 2 of the general grief camps, but this is her first time at the overdose-specific one. Campers come into the weekend with different stories. There isn't a need to explain. There's already this shared, unspoken understanding, says Talbot's mom, Lydia. She's come back each time just feeling certainly grateful, but nervous to jump back into a world where she doesn't have that anymore. The camp was created out of necessity, Calapi says. Between 2021 and 2022, the organization noticed a 30% spike in overdose losses, referenced in their general grief camp applications. It's funded through a partnership with the childhood bereavement nonprofit, A Little Hope. We realized that during COVID, there was so much overdose loss that was happening because people were at home and were trying to deal with their emotions and the confinements of being home and under lockdown in many cases, and the result was really triggering, Calapi said. Having lost somewhat at such a young age, it makes you mature a lot faster than other kids, says Daisy Talbot, who was 3 years old when her dad Luke died from the opioid overdose. Some campers are returning for their 3rd year. By 4 p.m., 28 campers and 46 volunteers are sprawled out in a grass field at Camp Ramah in the Berkshires playing icebreakers. After dinner, campers get their first real glimpse of what the weekend is about when they're corralled into the gymnasium. The crowd of rowdy kids grows quiet as volunteers, Jen Harris, a clinical social worker, tells them about losing her younger brother to overdose. She was 2 weeks shy of graduating college when she got the call about her brother's death due to opioids. In her grief, Harris struggled to reconcile her brother's 2 personalities. He was the loving, top-of-his-class scholar who was a die-hard Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. He was also manipulative, difficult, and self-destructive. Many of the kids at the camp can relate. I loved my brother, I loved who he was, but I hated who he was when he was using, says Harris, who's volunteered for 15 years. Some days, Harris tells the campers, she still wakes up angry. Storytelling happens throughout the weekend on a more intimate scale in age-specific support groups called Healing Circles. Every camper is also paired with a big buddy volunteer who joins their circle and is by their side throughout the entire weekend. It's only a 3-day camp, but it's 3 purposeful days because we're setting them up to leave the whole time, Calapi says. Come Sunday afternoon, bellies of hot dogs and hamburgers. The campers exchange hugs and phone numbers. Their grief doesn't end at the camp, but now they know more about how to carry on with their inherent grief. All right, friends, that article brings us to the end of today's broadcast of the Tuesday, October 14, Cape Cod Times. It's been my privilege and pleasure to read for you today, and I look forward to doing so again next Tuesday. This is Doug Fagan, your volunteer reader for the Audible Local Ledger, signing off and saying to you, stay happy and stay healthy and have a great week. So long for now.